Hello, everyone. If you're hearing noises, it's his tail. He did it. It's his tail. His tail, yeah. Look at the attention from this boy. Okay. Nobody paid for this, but it is being done nonetheless because we love our Toby. Alright, come on. Yes. Yes. Waggy. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. There you go. Good boy. What are you doing? What are you doing? These are here basically to keep him in check, to keep him being a good boy. So, like, that's what this is really about. The expression on this face. See, look at the expression on that face. Does that not say, please give me? Nothing says please give me quite like the expression on this face. Look at that. Look at that look. Look at that look. Here. I want him to look at you like he looks at this treat. Remember, kids, for 500 bits, you can keep this dog fed. You don't have to tease him anymore. I don't have to keep taking this treat away from him. Alright, so there we are. I've set the treat down. He cannot have it until it is time. Thank you, Rickalicious, for all the exercises. I kind of need that after what we're going to be reading. Guys, welcome, welcome. We're here for the final chapter of Mushoku Tensei. And the special chapter afterwards. Boy, it has been a busy week. For those of you that get email notifications from, I'm so glad I just Trashcon. I'm so glad I just took a drink of water as you did that because I was already on top of it. Look at that. It's like I knew. It's like I knew. For those of you who are patrons, I both do and don't apologize for all the emails that you got. We are updating and renovating our Patreon, and one of the ways that happened was we posted a bunch of content on there. All of Log Horizon is back on there. We're using Streamable now, so there are a lot more. Reading my mind, kind of scary. Yeah! Well, it's what I do, Dave. It's what I do. Not exactly a big mind to read. Anyway. So there you go. You got the menu-ness. I gave you the menu voice. Yay. I don't have anything. Yeah, so I'm the fat ugly guy that voices the menu. Probably thought it was somebody cooler. It's not. And behold my collection of stuff. So over here, keyboard. Back there, these are all light novels. A lot of it is Mushoku Tensei, Slime, Danmachi, things like that. Alright, got a bit of No Game, No Life. Over here is manga, a little bit of anime down below. And then this entire shelf right here is all manga. That is all manga. I have huge... I have a problem. I have a problem that I'm not planning to solve. It is the right kind of problem to have. So yeah, when I get to reading, I'm going to read for this whole thing. And then at the end, I will wrap up, give my thoughts of everything that we read. And then I'll do my exercises. I redeemed the exercises at the end. So I will take a look at the amount of exercises and we'll do those. As you can see, I have a doggo somewhere around here. He walked off. Now he knows I'm talking about him and I'm gesturing at him. He's here. He knows that I have a treat somewhere over here. Yeah, see, look. As soon as I pulled that up, see, as you can see, one of his little meaty treats. And the moment I will come here, the moment, see, there he is. I needed him to be on camera and having him look at you guys. Yeah, I know. He's like, why you do this to me? What's my favorite light novel volume so far of Mushoku Tensei? That's a good one. Because there's a lot of really good stuff that happens. Probably, though, I would say 15. Just because it's kind of the return of Eris. By the way, guys, if you don't know, the anime only covers up to volume 6, and we're at the end of volume 16, so we're 10 volumes ahead of the anime. There be spoilers here, so if you don't want spoilers, we understand if you don't come by. Quick updates. I posted all of One Piece Alabasta Abridged on our Patreon today, and a much more detailed information drop about the updates coming to the updates on what upcoming projects we're working on. So more detailed information about the Carry On cover, Slime 9, and what's going on there. Basically, where we're at in each project, try to go into a bit more depth of what's going on. And so that all got posted today. And yeah, dude. So I also threw myself under the bus when it came to Konosuba. I do come back about once a month to the script, look over it, and go, no, this isn't good enough. I always second guess myself, and so that's a lot of it. Welcome to my life. I second guess everything. All right, so yeah, nothing's ever good enough for me. I have watched whole ass episodes go by where I'm like, this is good, but it could be better. So even though everybody likes them, I'm sitting there, all I see is like, I could have done better. I could have done better. So if you ever want to hate yourself, become a writer. No, you won't hate yourself if you become a writer. You just have to become a perfectionist. Somebody that is forever chasing that elusive dream of getting everything 100% right. It'll never happen. Never happen. And you're going to have to accept it one of these days. Speaking of someone that is reaching for perfection but cannot do it by themselves, make sure to check out tomorrow's Anime Church as we talk about some big news happening for Hunter x Hunter. All right, that having been said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Guys, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you guys stopping by and hanging out with me for this. All of you. Really do appreciate it. All 9 of you. I do appreciate that. But let us move on and start now. Chapter 9, Before Traveling to the Asura Kingdom. For the 3rd time, I met Orsted at the cottage on the outskirts of Sharia. And this is how and that is how Ariel wound up convincing Lord Perugius to help her, and how we discovered we wouldn't be able to access the magic circles located within the Asuran border. Orsted grinned. It looked so sinister when he does that, but I guess it's probably just his normal smile. I see. You did well. If the wrinkle on his brow was any indication, he was plotting something even as he complimented me. Nah, his face always looks like that. But I would advise you to never return to the library labyrinth again. That Demon King holds grudges. Okay, I understand. Sadly, I wasn't spared a reprimand for my failure there. Orsted even scowled at me as he said it. No, actually, I think that was just exasperated with me. His expression seemed to say, how in the world did you end up causing so much trouble in a library of all places? But it wasn't really my fault now, was it? I had no idea Luke was gonna bawl like a baby over a book. I don't suppose there's any way they would accept an apology? I asked. That would be futile. Demon Kings don't operate on common sense. From my scant interaction with this Demon King, it seemed like they might actually be willing to hear me out, but Orsted didn't seem to think so. Admittedly, we'd made a bit of a mess. We wrecked a number of bookshelves as we escaped. Even though we had no other choice, I wanted to express how sorry I was. At least, but I was giving up on ever going back, as Orsted advised. Perhaps never showing my face there again was the best apology I could give. Nah, in the case of that Demon King, the best thing I could do is probably write in my diary. Daily updates would be impossible, but I would try to do it as much as possible. Anyway, that aside, what do you think about this teleportation circle business? I asked. The group had all suspected my involvement for a moment. They came to their senses immediately after, but that was still enough to put a seed of doubt in their heads, to make them think I was hiding something. The man god's work, I'm sure. Seems like his first attempt to thwart us failed. Orsted nodded to himself, confident in his explanation. He was in unusually good spirits. He kept mumbling something like, just one more person. I had no idea what he meant, but would be grateful for any enlightenment. If you don't mind, could you fill me in on what you mean by the man-god failing? Indeed. Orsted adjusted his posture and glared at me, eyes molten. If he scowled any harder, they might be glowing and shooting laser beams at me. Pew pew! Perugius confirmed that these teleportation circles of his are unusable, yes? Correct, bossman, sir. Bossman, sir? Orsted paused before continuing. There are not many of these circles within Asura's borders. Most were placed so that royals and nobles could escape if they ever found themselves backed into a corner. Among them, several are already non-functional, and those are the ones Perugius has made use of. Interesting. So they're like a secret escape route for the royal family. Thus, you have your answer, he said. I was at... Oh, okay, gotcha. Hang on. There we go. I see. So that's my answer. Like hell it is! That's no answer at all! What do you mean by that? I demanded, falling on my knees and bowing my head. Please explain. I need something more concrete to work with here. Orsted scowled menacingly. Okay, not menacingly. That's just how his face always looks. Simply put, these teleportation circles are in places where your average civilian cannot happen upon them. Many are protected by soldiers. Someone who can go in and destroy them must be someone of respectable authority, either a noble or a high-ranking aristocrat. Okay, I get where you're going with this. And? Use your head a little. Yes, sir. Okay, let's go over this. The culprit, who was either a royal or a high-ranking aristocrat with the authority to enter a restricted area, had suddenly cut off their own lifeline by destroying all of the circles that acted as escape routes for them. Not to mention, these were already non-functioning circles that Perugius might use to travel. The possibility that the man-god orchestrated all this seemed astronomically high. A normal citizen had no reason to destroy a magic circle. That meant one of his apostles was either a royal or someone in a position to manipulate the royal family. The most likely candidates for that role were first Prince Grable or High Minister Darius. One of them is the man-god's apostle? Indeed. The spread of those circles across the kingdom implicates the involvement of High Minister Darius, since his private soldiers are scattered throughout the nation. Oh, now I'm starting to see the bigger picture. I had no idea he had a private army dispersed throughout Asura, but it makes sense. So, we can be reasonably sure High Minister Darius is the man-god's apostle. Oh, so we can be reasonably sure that High Minister Darius is the man-god's apostle, then? Yes, there is a possibility it might be the first prince, but that changes nothing. We'll have to kill them both, regardless. Well, the first prince is Ariel's enemy, so that makes sense. But does that justify us murdering a prince? Guess it doesn't matter. If Orsted says it needs doing, I'll have to do it. That means there's just one apostle left unaccounted. That means there's just one apostle left unaccounted for, said Orsted. Just one? That means you are certain Luke is an apostle now? There can be no doubt. What about Ariel? I asked. Is she a possibility? No. Okay, come on. Enough with the vague answers, exasperated I said. What do you base that on? There are certain people the man god cannot manipulate. Okay, so, how can you tell that she's one of them? Intuition. Based on many years of experience, said Orsted. Intuition, huh? He'd paused briefly before he answered, which meant he was certain Ariel wasn't an apostle, but couldn't tell me his real reasoning. I decided not to pry any further. There were more important questions on my mind. What happens if your intuition turns out to be wrong and she's an apostle? If that should happen, I will take responsibility and dispose of her myself. Dispose of? As in kill? That was harsh, especially considering how close we'd grown over the past few weeks, including the incident where I'd walked in on her while she was changing. But if Orsted was willing to stake that much on her not being the man god's apostle, I should probably trust him. In that case, maybe I should share information about him with Ariel? His curse didn't seem to have as much of an effect on her, and if she wasn't one of the man god's apostles, it might be better to disclose everything to her. That way she could work with us to keep an eye on Luke. Nah, best not do that. Like Sylphie, she trusted him implicitly. She would never believe that he would work for her destruction, and Luke was only doing what he thought was best for her. Bringing up the man god would be kicking the hornet's nest. Luke wasn't Ariel's enemy. Hold on. Alright, there we go. Nope. There we go again. Alright, there's the last one that needed to happen. Luke wasn't Ariel's enemy. Being manipulated by the man god hadn't changed his allegiance. He was only doing things that sounded like a good idea to him, despite the fact that they were anything but. Right now, Orsted considered him a mere spy who observed my actions and reported them to the man god. He wouldn't do anything to directly harm Ariel. However, he might end up acting on the man god's advice to do something that seemed like it would help Ariel on the surface, but ultimately lead to her doom. That's what truly made him dangerous. I could understand Orsted's instinctive desire to kill him. Sir Orsted, I said suddenly. What? There is something I would like to clear with you, just to be on the safe side. Regarding how I should approach our battle with the man god, do you mind if I pick your brain? His forehead wrinkled. All right. I started outlining his war with the man god. First, we knew the man god could see the future. His view of it was both expansive and precise. He also had the ability to manipulate people to change the course of that future. However, he could not see events relating to Orsted. The dragon god's secret arts were stronger than the man god's prescient vision. Whenever Orsted got involved in an affair, the man god would see a false reflection of the future. Thus, he knew Orsted was involved whenever he sensed something slightly amiss or the future experienced a dramatic shift. But he couldn't see exactly how Orsted had brought about those changes. All he could do was guess. If he couldn't work out Orsted's objectives or what he had planned, the man god couldn't respond accordingly and influence the future in a way that benefited him. Orsted's curse meant none of the man god's apostles had been able to get close enough to spy on his activities, so his movements had gone undetected. At the same time, that curse also limited the scope of what he could accomplish. It was only now, after I had joined him, that he had more options at his disposal. As far as the man god was concerned, I was currently an invisible pawn on the chessboard, but if I took concrete action, he could suss out what Orsted was planning. That was why I was keeping my movements discreet, so I could avoid showing my hand to Luke, who was acting as the man god's eyes and ears. I also withheld information from Sylphie and Ariel since I knew how much they trusted him and that they would answer whatever questions he asked. They say you can't put doors over people's mouths, so I've tried not to say anything to anyone, far as I can help it. I plan to keep Orsted's aims and actions as secret as possible. That might make me look suspicious to others, as it had this time, but this would lead us to victory for sure. We would keep our intentions under wraps while defeating the man god's apostles as we work to achieve our objectives. I would serve Orsted for the rest of my life, and 100 years from now, he would come out on top. And that's my interpretation of the situation. Is that correct? Yes, it is, Orsted nodded. In that case, everything I had done up until now was technically correct. Perugius had called me weak, but we were on the path toward our goal. For now, we knew that Luke and Darius were the most likely candidates to be the man god's apostles. After that left one another. I wonder who that last person is, I said. I know not, but judging by the man god's past patterns, it is highly likely that someone extremely skilled at either martial arts or magic. Someone skilled at martial arts or magic. He did say it wouldn't be anyone in my family, right? Which means Eris and Sylphie are out of the running, fortunately. Come to think of it, my future self's diary mentioned a North Emperor and a water god in Osira Kingdom. Ariel also mentioned the first prince was employing a North Emperor. Could it be the North Emperor or the water god? I asked. Albur and Raider, yes? Oh, no, wait, I got that wrong. Albur and Raider, Yes, there is a good chance. When you leave for Osira Kingdom, be wary. You won't be coming along? I will be tailing behind you, of course, but we will not be operating together. The way he said tailing behind you sounded sinister, as if he was going to shadow me like a puppet master. Well, that means I can consult him if anything crops up. It's not so bad. All right, I said. In that case, Luke, Darius, Albur, and Rada are the ones I should watch out for. Indeed. You may kill Darius, Albur, or Rada if you like. As for Luke, keep an eye on the situation and use your judgment. If necessary, dispose of him. You want me to decide whether to kill any of them? I gaped. Yes. I leave it to your discretion. Did he seriously think I was someone capable of making those kinds of decisions? Sorry, silly question. Of course he did. I hadn't shown any hesitation when I attacked him and tried to claim his life, after all. Well, I said, what shall we do until it's time to depart? Orsted shrugged. Make preparations. Preparations. Right, but what does that mean? What should I be preparing exactly? First, get your equipment ready. You will likely be facing the man god's apostles in battle while you're in Osira. With your strength, I'm sure you will have no trouble, but it would be wise to bring some form of protection. He turned and looked out of the cottage where my magic armor lay in shambles. Zenoba was currently repairing it, but there was nowhere for us to store it in the city, so we had left it here. That thing doesn't measure up to the armor of the fighting god, but it is still a spectacular piece of work. I am sure you must have labored hard to create it. Well, yes, but we did get quite a bit of advice from the man god on its construction. Oh? Then he dug his own grave. What do you call it? I blinked at him. Call what? That armor. Oh, magic armor. I see. What an uninspired name. Shall I give you a new one for it? Let's see. No, I said, cutting him off, but thank you. Orsted narrowed his eyes and chuckled. His smile was as unsettling as ever. Our taste in names, or lack thereof aside, I wondered how Zenobia and Cliff would take it if they knew someone as supremely powerful as the dragon god Orsted had praised their creation. If you plan to continue using that thing in the future, you should consider improving it. It currently drains you of all your mana in a single battle. I frowned. But even if we were to make a smaller, more efficient version, it wouldn't be finished in only 2 weeks. Then we'll have to shelve that idea for another time, Orsted said, stroking his chin. Wondering if he'd be willing to lend a helping hand, in which case I guess the Dragon God Society logo will end up being slapped on it. Not being able to use battle aura certainly is inconvenient, Orsted murmured. For now, I'll see if I can't prepare a few magic items for you to use. Oh, that would be great, thank you. So Orsted was going to provide me with not just the best working environment and pay, but the best equipment as well? Damn. Makes sense, though. He did set me up with this robe, too. The difference between him and the man god's inscrutable, completely hands-off approach was day and night. Speaking of which, I've been hearing a lot about the fighting god's armor lately. What is it? I asked. Demon Dragon King Laplace's greatest masterpiece and also his worst failure. Laplace's masterpiece? So he's the one who made it, huh? The armor itself glows golden with magical power and bestows immeasurable strength upon its wearer. However, the mana it contains is so great that it has given the armor a mind of its own. It assumes control over the wearer, forcing them to fight until they die. It's a cursed armor. Cursed armor, huh? Guess the dragon folk have a knack for making those kinds of things. Laplace had made all manner of cursed items, from the Spurd's weapons to his golden armor. Nothing he created was any good. Having said that, Orsted continued, the armor is currently sleeping deep in the middle of the Ringus Sea. Orsted seemed to know anything and everything. It made him a truly convenient resource. Nonetheless, I couldn't depend on him for everything. I had to find some things I could do independently. Sadly, there was only about 2 weeks till we were set to leave. There wasn't much I could do. I couldn't get complacent simply because I was Orsted's subordinate. He was a bit too aloof about matters, or more precisely, he seemed to think he could always try again if the first attempt failed. Perhaps he aimed to develop magic that could allow him to return to the past after reading my future self's diary. Or maybe he'd already experienced a time slip like that himself. Come to think of it, he once said something along the lines of trying again next time, and as soon as the words left his mouth, he made this awkward face as if he realized he'd slipped up. Maybe he'd been through these time slips not once or twice, but a number of times now. I had no idea why he would keep that under wraps, but since he hadn't mentioned it, he probably wouldn't answer me even if I asked. But even if Orsted could simply do things over again next time, there was no next time for me. You only get one life to live. Or so I'd like to say, but that probably wasn't the most convincing coming from me, given my experience with reincarnation. Even so, after talking to my future self, watching his last moments, and reading his diary, I could sense how full of regrets he was. I couldn't just bank on wiping my slate clean and starting over if I messed up. Or rather, I felt like I would be betraying the person I'd been up until now if I kept up that mentality, which is why I needed to put everything I have into this. But how, specifically? Of course, I could hone my fighting and magical skills, but I didn't think that more practice would suddenly make me that much stronger. Were that possible, I would happily work out a strict regimen to boost my abilities, but it wasn't. On top of that, anything new I achieved in only 2 weeks of preparation would be unreliable and half-baked. It was better to continue building on the abilities I already had. Aside from that, I decided to set aside time to run some mock battles. I'd felt like something was lacking for a while now. Practice and training were important, but nothing could replace testing the techniques I'd learned in battle. Sparring, as one might say if this was boxing, or exhibition matches if you preferred fighting game terminology. My sparring partner would be Eris. She was now a sword king and far better than me at melee combat, so she would put up a good fight. If anything, I was more worried that she wouldn't find me a challenge. At least I could use my quagmire and deep mist spells to give her some battle experience. As much as she boasted of her battle prowess, she was still vulnerable to traps that targeted her weaknesses. Also, I would ask Zenoba and Cliff to try repairing and improving my magic armor. It needed to be smaller and more fuel efficient, even if that meant reducing its capabilities. They probably couldn't get it done in 2 weeks, but it would serve me in the long run, so I wanted them to start on it now. With Orsted's help, we could surely finish the project over the next couple of years. It seemed he'd also provide any equipment we needed, so I was set on that front at least. So that was how I planned to improve my training and gear. Now I just needed to think about what was left. With so little time left, I needed to plan carefully, so I decided to schedule my next 2 weeks. First, I would announce my upcoming long absence to the family. It wasn't a topic I wanted to broach, in part because because I likely wouldn't be around when Roxy came into labor, but I couldn't avoid telling them forever. Next, I needed to get in touch with Cliff. In addition to the improvements I wanted him to make on the magic armor, I had one other request for him. Namely, I wanted him to conduct experiments on Orsted's curse. Come to think of it, I wonder if Orsted knows what's going on with Zenith. By the way, sir, I started to say, what is it? I explained Zenith's conditions to him and brought up the book I discovered in the library labyrinth that referred to a blessed child who could remove curses. That blessed child doesn't seem to be among the living now, he said. But do you know of any other way that blessed child doesn't seem to be among the living now, I said. But do you know of any other way I might cure her? Orsted fell into silent contemplation. After a bit, he finally spoke, his voice gentler than usual. It's true that you may be able to return her to normalcy if you use this powerless blessed child's abilities. However, their skills are no substitute for an actual cure. If you try to force her mind back to what it was before, it may backfire, and things might go in the opposite direction. So there's decent odds it'll only make her worse, huh? Then again, after everything she'd been through, it was a miracle she was even alive. If trying to meddle with her mental state meant possibly making it worse, it was probably wiser to just keep an eye on her for now. Pardon me. To keep an eye on her for now instead. Her condition wasn't a health concern at the moment. Guess I just gotta be patient and watch over her. All right, well, with that out of the way, I will begin preparations to set out for Osira Kingdom, I said. I'd cleared up all the questions I had, so all that's left is doing the best I can in the time I've got. The following day, we had our family meeting as I'd planned. In fact, I feel like we've been having a lot of these family meetings lately. This time it was to announce my departure for Osira Kingdom. I told them I would be gone for about 3 to 4 months to help Ariel. The reaction to that was indifference. Okay, well, good luck with that. Oh, but before you go, I'd appreciate it if you could make some soil from the garden, said Aisha. She was more concerned about her dirt than my well-being. So Princess Ariel will be dropping out from the academy then, Norn muttered, like Aisha, she didn't seem to be too worried about me either. I wonder if they'll have a farewell party. This is odd. Last time we did this whole song and dance, they seemed a bit more, emotional? I want a tear-filled farewell again. I want to be able to hug my sobering sisters and console them by doing my best Terminator impression and saying, I'll be back. Hey, Aisha, I said, I might not be coming home from this. Huh? Every time we do this, you always act like you won't be coming home, but then you show back up on our doorstep like it's no big deal. I barely escaped death each time, but perhaps my little sisters didn't see it that way. Or perhaps they were trying to be considerate and not make me worry before I left. Whatever the case, I would do my best out there. I would be satisfied if the two of them could live their lives peacefully in the meantime. Besides, this means there will be another woman joining our household, said Norn. Exactly, Aisha agreed, which makes us feel silly for even worrying. And this time you'll have Miss Sylphie and Miss Eris going with you. That gives us extra peace of mind. As if on cue, Eris retreated to her room to begin packing for the journey. Earlier, when I'd first said where I would be going, she said, "Oh? Then I'm going too." She hadn't even hesitated. "Speaking of," Aisha said, turning to Norn, "who do you think he'll bring back this time?" "Hard to say for sure. Maybe one of the girls serving Princess Ariel? Miss Elamoy or Miss Clean, perhaps?" My two sisters were saying some really rude things, but for the record, I didn't intend to take any more wives. For one, I had hardly ever spoken to either Elamoy or Clean. I thought of saying so, but on the other hand, I didn't really trust the head between my legs. But I seriously doubt anything like that is going to happen this time. I'll have Sylphie and Eris with me, after all. Exactly. I had been alone in the past group ventures, which had left me emotionally devastated.